Welcome to NTD News Today. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. The hotly contested Texas redistricting plan passes the Republican majority state Senate. Texas Governor Greg Abbott is expected to sign the bill, which could mean big wins for the GOP in Congress and a challenge for Democrats. Court documents say the Salvadoran man at the center of a high-profile U.S. immigration case now faces deportation to a country in Africa. The latest on Abrego Garcia. The Congressional Budget Office says President Trump's tariffs will reduce the federal deficit by around $4 trillion over the next decade. We'll have an economist break it down. Social media influencers can have a significant effect on how people view a city, such as New York City. From culture to real estate, we show what changes can happen when a local post goes viral. How might frozen desserts like ice cream and frozen yogurt be impacting your gut health? Vital Signs' Brendan Fallon shares insights on microbiome health from the best-selling author of Super Gut.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
The Texas Senate approved a bill early on Saturday to redraw the state's congressional maps. Here are the details.
Senate will come to order.
A controversial redistricting bill was approved by the Texas Senate early on Saturday, days after it was passed by the state House. That's despite a standoff among Democrats who said the bill was discriminatory on the basis of race. The Republican-supported bill was adopted on a party line vote of 18-11 after more than 8 hours of debate, according to the Texas Tribune.
House Bill 4 is finally passed.
In a statement, Texas Governor Greg Abbott said he would swiftly sign the bill into law. The measure will redraw the state's congressional maps at the behest of President Donald Trump in an effort to flip 5 U.S. House seats in favor of Republicans. Republicans have acknowledged they believe winning more congressional seats in Texas will help the party maintain its slim majority in the U.S. House in next year's midterm elections. But the bill's passage saw roadblocks. Lawmaker Nicole Collier was one of more than 50 Democrats from the Texas House who left the state in a 2-week walkout that denied Republicans the legislative quorum needed. Upon returning, they faced rules by the Republican leadership requiring them to stay put in the Capitol building unless they agreed to be placed in custody of a state police officer to monitor their movements. Collier spent 2 nights sleeping in the Capitol.
We gotta fight.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. The fact that I'm still mad, angry, and furious means that I still want to fight.
Yeah.
During Senate debate on Friday, some lawmakers echoed the criticism that Democrats had raised in the House that the new Texas map violates federal law by diluting Hispanic and Black voting power. Democrats have indicated they will challenge the redistricting plan in courts.
In response to Texas redistricting, California Governor Gavin Newsom on Thursday signed off on a map to redistrict his own state in favor of Democrats. Californians will vote this November in a referendum. The illegal immigrant from El Salvador at the center of a high-profile immigration case could be deported to Uganda. The news came after Kilmar Abrego Garcia was released from a Tennessee jail. Their court filing said the U.S.'s new aim in the case emerged after Abrego Garcia turned down an offer that would have seen him deported to Costa Rica in exchange for staying in jail and pleading guilty to human smuggling charges. His attorney said that after he was released from the Tennessee jail, ICE notified them that he would be deported to Uganda and should report to immigration authorities on Monday. That's unless he accepts a plea in exchange for deportation to Costa Rica. If he doesn't take the plea deal, it'll be off the table. Abrego Garcia's case became a flashpoint in President Trump's immigration agenda after he was deported to El Salvador in March, despite a judge's ruling that he would face a well-founded fear of violence there. Today is Independence Day in Ukraine, marking 34 years since the country's separation from the Soviet Union. Also today, Ukraine struck a Russian nuclear power plant in Kursk. Plus, Russia and Ukraine exchanged prisoners. A Ukrainian drone on Sunday hit Russia's nuclear power plant in Kursk, causing a brief fire and reducing output at one reactor to 50%. No injuries were reported, and radiation levels remained normal, according to Moscow. Russian air defenses intercepted a drone headed for Moscow, prompting temporary closures at several regional airports, with dozens of flights delayed.
We use our domestically produced long-range weapons. And to be honest, we haven't been discussing such issues with the United States of America lately.
Ukraine had to ask the U.S. for permission to conduct long-range strikes on Russian territory under the Biden administration. Meanwhile, Russia and Ukraine exchanged 146 prisoners from each side on Sunday, according to the Russian Defense Ministry.
This is what we have been doing for 1,278 days of this war, the war for independence. For each of these days, I want to thank you, Ukrainian soldier, Ukrainian volunteer, doctor, rescuer, teacher, our youth, our parents, every Ukrainian man and woman. Thank you all for what we've already been through and for creating Ukraine together.
With Ukraine's Independence Day today, Zelensky and the First Lady join religious leaders in Kyiv's St. Sophia Cathedral for a prayer for peace. In the Vatican, Pope Leo renewed his appeal for peace in Ukraine. U.S. Special Envoy Keith Kellogg joins Zelensky for a state celebration. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney was there for his first visit as Prime Minister.
Ukraine gets it, peace, because it gets security guarantees. So strong that no one else in the world could even think of attacking Ukraine.
On the issue of security guarantees, Ukraine and Russia remain divided, particularly over the presence of Western troops on Ukrainian soil. It's one of the reasons Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says his country is not yet ready for a meeting between Presidents Putin and Zelensky. After the Trump-Putin summit in Alaska, peace talks saw a breakthrough. President Trump announced that the leaders of Russia and Ukraine would engage in direct dialogue. However, Russia has once again raised concerns. U.S. Vice President Vance responded, saying that ups and downs in diplomatic efforts to resolve such a complex war are to be expected.
If you look historically, whenever you have a complicated war with a lot of death and destruction, it kind of goes in fits and starts. There are hills and valleys to the negotiation. We sometimes feel like we've made great progress with the Russians, and sometimes, as the president has said, he's been very frustrated with the Russians. And we're going to keep on doing what we have to do to bring this thing to a close. I don't think it's going to happen overnight.
President Trump has given Moscow another 2-week deadline to agree to peace talks with Zelensky, warning he will take further action if no progress is made. From a monumental visit of European leaders in pursuit of peace to a massive downsizing at the nation's top spy office, the Trump administration kept up its fast pace with an action-packed week. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more.
National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard announced a 40% workforce reduction at her own office, saying on Fox News that ODNI had failed its mission.
ODNI has more than doubled in size. It is bloated with bureaucracy. It is rife with politicization, weaponization, the very thing that it was created to try to prevent and get after. And unfortunately, it has failed to meet its mandate.
1, 2, 3,
Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth launched the Pete and Bobby Challenge.
50 pull-ups, 100 push-ups. You try to get under 5 minutes. How'd you do?
We got close. I was about 5:25. You were right behind me.
Kennedy says the challenge kicks off a national push to get Americans fit again. The U.S. finalized a historic trade deal with the European Union. The agreement eliminates EU tariffs on American industrial goods and commits Europe to buying hundreds of billions in U.S. energy and AI technology through 2028. Citing the Trump effect, the White House highlighted new investments. Johnson & Johnson's $2 billion expansion in North Carolina, and Hadrian's $200 million manufacturing facility in Arizona. President Trump visited federal and local law enforcement working to reduce crime in Washington, D.C.
We're going to take care of these criminals. We're going to put them where they have to be. You're going to say, don't play around with us.
The president came bearing gifts.
Would you rather have hamburgers from the White House or pizzas from a good place, huh? I think they want the hamburgers.
FBI Director Kash Patel says arrests of violent criminals have doubled under President Trump this year. And finally, a New York appeals court overturned a $500 million fine against Trump, his family, and his company. New York AG Letitia James emphasized that the court upheld the fraud liability and vowed to appeal. The Supreme Court also cleared the administration to move ahead with sweeping cuts to NIH grants for research related to DEI and LGBT groups. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Coming up, one of our reporters was robbed at gunpoint. We give you the account of what happened. Stay tuned.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
£6 prescription glasses from Select Specs are always great value. There are no offer codes or first-time customers only. Anyone can buy them, anytime. And you can upgrade to Select Specs Express for next day delivery. And with deferred payments, you can spread the cost.
See now, pay later with Select Specs £6 specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options available at selectspecs.com/£6.
My dad was a farmer, and when I saw him on a horse, the guy was bigger than life. One of the things that he had a hard time doing was showing the emotion. Maybe it was because the way he was raised, or believing that men provide and they don't struggle. But we all struggle. I want to show emotion to my kids. I want them to know when I'm happy, I want them to know when I'm sad, and I want them to see me working through things. The biggest reward I get from being a dad is watching my kids accomplish a goal, watching them light up. Nothing brings a bigger smile to my face. So I make my kids a priority. Whether it's hitting a baseball, a dance rehearsal, you name it, I'm there. They're gonna remember that they grew up loved. Be brave. Be there every day. And allow your kids to know that it's okay to struggle. That even dad doesn't know the answer sometimes, but we're gonna figure it out together.
Washington, D.C. crime and its impact on capital city residents is in the spotlight with the Trump administration crackdown there. One such resident is our very own White House correspondent Iris Tao, who was robbed at gunpoint and pistol whipped roughly 2 years ago. Here's her account of what happened.
Iris, thanks so much for joining us. If you could first walk us through what happened to you personally.
Sure. So it was over 2 years ago. I was living near the wharf, or in between the wharf and the Navy Yard area in D.C., which supposedly isn't that dangerous, but it was an 8:30 a.m. Saturday morning when I walked out of an apartment when a young guy with a black ski mask covering everything but his eyes just suddenly walked up and pointed a gun at my face and be like, "Give me your phone." So before I could even react, he took it away from my jacket and demanded also my wallet, my laptop, and even the password to my phone, and actually all of which I refused to give, but he smacked me in the face, in the cheek with his handgun before running away. And unfortunately, throughout the past 2.5 years, I've not heard back from the DC police about what exactly happened afterwards. Was he ever caught? That guy was actually, he actually fobbed into an apartment building right next to mine, which made me even more concerned afterwards. And honestly, throughout the past 2.5 years, I've not been feeling safe in DC walking at night or really just during the day as well. I've been Ubering almost every day home, even though I just live very, close to the office, relatively speaking. But that fear has really planted in myself, and it's been, part of my memory and journey in DC that I've been sharing with everyone as well.
That's really unfortunate and terrible. I do personally remember it when it happened. And I mean, just to say, this is at 8 in the morning on a Saturday in a relatively, what you would say, a safe part of Washington. So you, after experiencing this personally, roughly 2 years ago, and now seeing, real action being taken, there's a lot of debate about it. Is it worth it? Did crime go down? As somebody who's experienced a violent crime, pistol whipped, a gun pointed in your face in broad daylight, and robbed, what's your assessment of the way things stand right now?
So, of course, as a White House reporter, I've been covering crime statistics in D.C. over the past few years. Officially, the numbers, for example, do say that violent crime has come down, actually down 35% from its peak back in 2023. City officials are also telling us that the crime in D.C. has had a nearly 30-year low. But alternatively, you also got to look at the lived experience, for example, including mine. And last year alone, there were over 29,000 crimes reported in D.C., and that's including, for example, over 3,000 violent offenses, over 2,000 robberies, and over 1,000 assaults with a dangerous weapon. So that's thousands of other D.C. residents who have went through the same thing as I did, and their families and friends probably equally traumatized by the experience they hear from their close family member. Once you hear something like that happening so close to someone that's probably going to determine what you think about the crime situation in D.C., not the numbers published on the city's website. So I think on the one hand, we've really got to look at the real human toll behind the statistics published online. But on the other hand, we're also going to dig into the data to see what it's telling us. For example, there are some debates right now over whether some crime data has been manipulated or underreported in the city. But there's one category, though, that's really hard to, be underreported or be manipulated, and that is the homicide rate, because each data point there really represents a life lost. And we know that in DC, for example, there were 27 people killed per 100,000 residents here, and that data point is actually more than double from just a decade ago. And just in the past year, we have seen horrific incidents, including, for example, a 2-year-old girl sitting in a car after July 4th fireworks with her family, getting shot and killed. Another 21-year-old Capitol Hill intern also killed walking the street, and another man shot just a few blocks from the White House hours after President Trump announced his crackdown. So these are real examples happening near us in the city, and that's hard to overlook.
It truly is. With the crackdown on crime underway, we're going to see coming up in another segment where Sam Wong was out there in Anacostia, one of the most dangerous neighborhoods, talking to the folks out there about how they're feeling. What are you seeing? Are the numbers out yet to talk about if things are improving or not?
So first of all, as a DC resident who have, gone through something like that, right now, just seeing the National Guard troops and also the trucks, the military trucks outside Union Station every day makes me feel safer. Honestly, I've been, every time I walk by Union Station, seeing just homeless people on the street makes me feel unsafe, because you never know who's going to walk up and potentially point a gun at you and try to rob you. And that's at least me personally. But also data, we have seen some improvement already, actually, according to the DC Police Union. Since President Trump started his crackdown action nearly 2 weeks ago, the data has shown that robbery is now down 46%, carjacking down 83%, and also violent crime down 22%. So, of course, it remains to be seen long term or in the next few weeks how that kind of data will continue to trend. But at least I think even one case down is a big achievement as someone who has experienced something like that.
I think that's what most DC residents, including myself, are asking. Is it, you can feel things are changing, but is it here to stay? Lastly, you did just publish an op-ed, an opinion editorial about your experience in detail. In one of your previous responses just now, you sort of outlined how this has a real toll on people. Was that one of the biggest reasons that you decided to write this?
So, of course, it has been a few years. Although I've told my friends, I've not really come public about it personally, but just seeing everything right now, seeing the changes happening, of course, seeing people talking about it, debating the numbers especially, makes me feel an urge to come out to at least share my personal experience. Of course, not to take a side at whether the data are accurate or whether the White House approach is fully approved by the DC residents, but at least to share my story, to really trying to tell the public that behind those numbers, there are real living, DC residents here who might have suffered one of those incidents themselves.
NTD's White House correspondent, Iris Tao, we're grateful that you are safe and still here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing.
And how are other locals in the nation's capital reacting to the federal takeover of the Washington, D.C. police? NTD's Sam Wang, as you heard, visited Anacostia, a D.C. neighborhood with one of the city's highest crime rates, to hear from the people. Check it out.
Do you think more police presence is warranted in this neck of the woods?
Yes, I can confirm it. I'm happy because we have a very good president, Donald Trump.
If it cracks down on crime, I guess it can help, Anything that stops crime down, because you want the children to be safer and people to be safer.
I'm from D.C., born and raised, and I just don't see why we got to go through all this. And I just walk around everywhere, and I see them everywhere. I kind of get a little nervous.
The police takeover, it needs to be done. It's riddled with crime. It's riddled with all kind of social issues that need to be addressed. And you really do learn about raw life as it really is. It's not dressed up over here.
Just like an hour or two ago, I saw somebody getting arrested right here on the bus. Obviously, there's some kind of agitation going on, so they drag him out and arrested him. Have you seen any criminal activities going on around this neighborhood living here?
No criminal activities, but I see a lot of harassment from police.
We ain't got to be watched over by federal agents, because we are our own government. That's how I look at it. That's how I see it.
There is criminal activity, a lot of it, but it seems to be overlooked. A blind man can see it.
In D.C., a lot of gun shooting every day, even before Trump to take over. I have been walking on the train, seeing a teenager with gun assaulting me.
How do you think the city has been handling this crime situation in the past, before the police takeover?
My elementary school kids, they need some direction and guidance. It needs to be more on the foot patrol, more connection with the school, the churches, and the community.
As a Washingtonian, I think it needs to be stepped up a little more. Because I know that they can't be around all at one time, but something has to be done about that.
We have to obey the law because no one is above the law, and we have to obey the authority.
And next, the Congressional Budget Office says President Trump's tariffs will reduce the federal deficit by around $4 trillion over the next decade. Joining us to discuss it all is Christian Briggs, economist and CEO at Hard Asset Management. Christian, good to have you with us this Sunday. Parse this out for us. How did the agency reach its conclusion?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. It's interesting because when they originally scored a lot of the things that President Trump was trying to get through from the BBB and other pieces of legislation kind of within it, they thought this could be a deficit increase. It turns out that the revenues from the tariffs are adding a significant amount of value to the underlying top line needs of the government when it comes to the spending. So the tariff money is actually reducing the deficit spending, thus creating what I call it a kind of a C plus dump to a B plus, and this may turn out to be an A plus graded bill in terms of deficit reduction. So they had no choice. CDO had to reduce the amount of money that would otherwise be spent because the tariffs are working. And some people are arguing, well, what about the long term? Well, this proves the long term, these tariffs are going to work.
Okay, now considering legal challenges to the tariffs, and the potential for changes to trade agreements. Do you expect this $4 trillion number to remain the same?
Well, that's a great question. Are the tariffs going to remain? We still got that legal argument coming up to the Supreme Court. The constitutionality of the tariffs, I think, will stand just because the president has the authority in times of needs, and this is a kind of a financial need. So unless the Supreme Court looks differently on this, and they may, I mean, the lower courts obviously have challenged the tariffs' ability to be utilized without congressional legislation. However, I do think that the Supreme Court will look at this in kind of a different light, similar to what they did with the American or the Affordable Care Act when the American healthcare system was kind of changed over. And Judge Roberts determined that it really wasn't a tax, that it was more of a fee. So I like to think that they're going to do the right thing and let this thing go through. But in the end of the day, if they don't, then the amount of money that was generated from the tariffs, unfortunately, will have to be returned, and we will have a larger deficit probably than first expected.
Now, the CBO says revenues often lag several months behind implementation of tariff policies, and that importers have the option to delay payments up to 6 weeks. When do you expect that we'll start to see evidence of the impact of tariffs on the deficit?
I think you're going to start seeing it around the first quarter next year. I think you make a good point. There is a delay mechanism, probably 6 to 12 months in some cases. The amount of spending last month, which was quite high, was about $291 billion excess versus revenue income. So this may take around maybe another 9 months to really feel the effects as it kind of ramps up. Because we've got to remember this, we don't have China quite yet at the table with the reaffirmed amount of tariff on whatever goods are coming from China into us. So that's still a little bit of a quagmire of uncertainty. However, with the revenues that are certain, that have started to come in, we do have at least a blueprint of some very positive things. The question also has to be asked, will these become inflation-driven policies? The inflation has ticked up. We have seen some things now that even the Federal Reserve has said we've got to be more mindful and look at, but it may not be detrimental enough to warrant a rate hike. In fact, there probably is going to be a rate cut coming in September. Probably 25 basis points would be realistic. 50 would be great. But at some point, it's a matter of, will the GDP grow fast enough? Will the tariff revenue increase significant enough to overcome any inflationary pressures? And the last part of the equation is, will wages be able to keep up? Because here's the key. The tariffs are great for reducing deficit spending by the government. The inflation is going to pick up because tariffs are, in some cases, going to increase costs of anything coming in. But will wages keep up? That's what was really going to be the telling tale. We won't know that until probably the first half of next year.
Okay, lastly, Christian, what will you be looking for next on this front?
I'm going to be looking for two things. I'm glad you asked that question again. Great questions, because it looks at what we currently look at. The future is really going to tell the tale of the success of this. And the two things I'm looking for right now are, can the wages pick up? Can the consumers continue to spend so that the consumption amount of GDP that is really, because we're a consumption-based economy for the most part, our manufacturing is obviously a lot less, but we're trying to bring that back. So can the wages keep up to overcome the inflation? And if Trump is right and the GDP roars back with all of the spending that's now coming in from foreign investment, as well as increasing domestic manufacturing commitments, there may be a tipping point where the GDP brings the wages up more than the inflation and still reduces the amount of spending the government does, because we'll have actual revenue increases, not just from tariffs, but here's the best part, from taxation on higher income that jobs that are being created on the manufacturing side. See, no one talks about that. These jobs in the manufacturing sector are six-figure jobs with benefits. This could be huge for bringing in the additional revenues needed to bring down the additional deficit spending that the tariffs don't otherwise address.
Christian, important perspectives here on this latest development. Really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for coming on. Christian Briggs.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And what you see online is not always an accurate portrayal of real life. Shocking, I know. That disconnect is the subject of our Sean Marshall's latest story on the impact social media influencers have on people's perception of New York City. A perception not all locals are happy about. Here it is.
Imagine trying to get reservations at a local restaurant and it's all sold out because social media influencers made it go viral by talking about it. Or that when people check the highest post pushed by the algorithm, all they see are what influencers show off to the public or shocking negative activity.
To my knowledge, there is a bit of cultural backlash here.
Star Cashman has noticed the divide on the view given by social media influencers that can shape a view of New York City local culture, and that can change how the rest of the world views New York City.
There is the movie picture perfect version of New York City that is vastly different than what actual residents of New York City, especially those who grew up here, are currently dealing with. There is rising crime, there's increased poverty, rent is constantly increasing, and it's really difficult to afford rent and even groceries here. So the locals are really pushing back on the type of content that they're seeing that's really a romanticized picture perfect version of New York.
There are also the effects on the local real estate that have changed along with the growth of social media. Many claim there is a growing gentrification that comes with a neighborhood gaining viral internet popularity. According to Skyline Properties, a commercial real estate brokerage firm based in Manhattan, a post from a well-known Instagram figure resulted in a 30% spike in inquiries about apartments in a previously overlooked area. This demonstrates how influencers can affect property value and desirability, especially in emerging neighborhoods.
I believe that New York City inhabitants that are having or giving a lot of backlash to these influencers or people who are romanticizing New York City. Of course, they feel passionately about that. But on the other hand, there is that type of community and groupthink mindset where people are really kind of blowing it out of proportion to an extent. And I don't think that that should discourage people from also posting about the positives of New York City.
A 2019 study found that influencers have an economically significant impact on effective rents of New York's retail rental market. The study claims it was able to build a meaningful framework to study real estate by linking the online and offline world. They found it to be meaningful for retail real estate challenged by e-commerce and other forms of new economy. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
Coming up, how might frozen desserts like ice cream and frozen yogurt be impacting your gut health? Vital Signs' Brendan Fallon shares insights on microbiome health from the best-selling author of Super Gut after this break.
What if kids in America didn't have to go to bed hungry tonight? What if our moms, dads, and grandparents could put healthy food on the table every day to help us grow strong? What if all of our friends and neighbors had fresh food too, and there was no hunger at all in America? And what if there was a way today for you to help? Call now or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day. So many of us don't have enough food to eat, but your monthly gift means families across the country and in your community can fill plates with food. Kids can get healthy meals year-round, even when school's out, and our neighbors can have fresh food. Food that moms, dads, entire families need to thrive. But right now, more people are facing hunger. Feeding America works from coast to coast with partner food banks, food pantries, and meal programs. It takes all of us to make that happen. Will you help too? Please call the number on your screen or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give just $19 a month, and we'll send you this free canvas grocery bag. It's our way of saying thank you for helping to end hunger for our neighbors. Because no kid, no mom or dad, nobody should go hungry in America. Nobody. So what if today was the day you could help nourish futures for our friends, our families, for all of us? Ending hunger is possible. What if we end it together?
Call or give online today at helpfeedingamerica.org and your gift can be doubled.
Thank you.
Hate is loud.
It gets clicks. It gets attention. Hate, however, is actually quite small. But love is the majority, filling up something far more important than any feed. Love fills our hearts, our lives, our every day, with understanding, empathy, and compassion, leaving hate to become what it truly is, a whisper.
Welcome back to NTD. I'm joined in studio now by NTD health correspondent and host of Vital Signs, Brendan Fallon. Vital Signs offers information on natural and nutritional ways of optimizing our health. Brendan, it's nice to see you.
Great to see you, Steph.
Yeah, so what have you got for us to start with? You spoke with Dr. Davis,
That's right.
who's the author of Supergut and many other books.
Yeah, I know you're familiar with Dr. William Davis, a huge personality, very engaging speaker. And I've got some news about some foods that are very loved out there, that including, as you mentioned, frozen yogurt, ice cream, some fairly startling news about these things, but we'll also offer some alternatives to those. And this comes from Dr. Davis. He's written this book, Supergut. And he was a cardiologist who discovered the health benefits that people were gaining just from looking at their diet, and the considerable benefits to their heart health from adjusting diet. Firstly, he's just going to outline what the microbiome is, the civilization of organisms that live within us that have such a crucial impact on our health. The first clip we have is him talking about what that is.
All right.
What do they do?
Brennan, what can't they do? In fact, it's astounding how much ignorance has been operating until this became clear, until DNA methods unmasked the thousands of species we had no knowledge of whatsoever and their role in human health. So we now know that the gastrointestinal, there's many microbiomes. There's urinary, there's vaginal, there's brain, there's airway, there's skin. But the dominant one, most important, is the gastrointestinal microbiome, the microbes that live anywhere from the mouth down to the anus, 30 feet of the gastrointestinal tract. And we were not aware of the thousands of species that perform all sorts of functions, including causing anxiety, depression, headache, rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, weight gain, type 2 diabetes, autoimmune disease, neurodegenerative disorders, rosacea, psoriasis, eczema. In other words, we need to re-examine virtually all human disease in light of the contribution of the microbiome. Unfortunately, it takes a generation or two. You'll be long retired, and I will be long gone before mainstream physicians incorporate all the emerging insight, because we know that a practical matter in healthcare is that doctors get trained and then rarely learn anything new after their training is ended. And a 30, 40-year career of just practicing the status quo means that the current crop of practicing physicians do not know how to incorporate all the wonderful, incredibly powerful insights into the microbiome.
Gosh, considering all of the symptoms just listed out there, this gut health seems like it could be a hidden epidemic.
Truly, and this is really a case that emphasizes how much I think nowadays people really need to take their health into their own hands to a large degree. You can't just rely on your physician to tell you what you should be doing. And I see this myself in hosting this show. I speak to so many different doctors, and they're all incredible experts in their fields, but you get completely different advice from one person to the other. So it just goes to show you really need to look around for yourself and get your own information.
Certainly, and as we've been learning from Dr. Davis, as you've been learning through your show as well, there's so much that people are doing to prevent perfect health, and so much you can do actively as well. There's like two sides at least that you can come at it from. But I do want to turn to, there's more that you've learned from Dr. Davis from another angle, all about gut health.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is something, I mean, if I mention the word mucus, you might have kind of a visceral reaction to that. But mucus is actually, it's something, it's made of, it's a clear substance, it's water, it's salt, and it also contains these immune cells. And it's actually a very important substance to our health. And this was something I wanted to get his opinion on because I'd heard him talk about this very popular supplement, N-acetylcysteine, which many people are taking for their brain health. And I knew he had a specific take on this and a little different to what many people are saying. And this also falls into a category of other substances that, this is where ice cream comes in, frozen yogurt, they contain the substance emulsifiers. And this is something that has an impact on this mucus in our gut. And this is what Dr. Davis talks about here.
Okay.
So what they do in the hospital is they give you aerosolized N-acetylcysteine because it's a very potent emulsifying agent. It breaks up mucus. Well, mucus in the airways is not always good in those conditions, but mucus in the gastrointestinal tract is protective. It protects you from microbes. It protects you from breakdown products during the process of digestion. So we want that mucus. What happens when you disrupt the mucus lining? It could be N-acetylcysteine. It could be Miralax, used in gastrointestinal prep for a colonoscopy. Very harmful substance, by the way. The prep done to protect you actually damages you. This is emblematic, by the way, of modern healthcare. Blunder after blunder after blunder because they didn't think about it all the way through. How about polysorbate 80 or carboxymethylcellulose? Those are the emulsifying agents added to foods like ice cream. And they add it for good reason, or at least they think they did. When you let ice cream thaw, it gets liquidy, right? And you put it back in the freezer, it gets rock hard, right? And the solids separate from the water, from the ice. So they add tons of emulsifying agents, for instance, the ice cream, the polysorbate 80, others, carrageenan, gellan gum, xanthan gum, keep it from separating. All these things disrupt the mucus barrier. And we know with good evidence, when you disrupt the mucus barrier for minutes, hours to weeks, as those things do, you change the microbial composition of the GI tract and you increase endotoxemia, higher blood pressure, higher blood sugar, insulin resistance, skin rashes, anxiety, panic attacks, depression, inflammation, insulin resistance, weight gain. So thinking that NAC, because it leads to glutathione, that overly simplistic thinking led them to advocate consumption of what is essentially a poison.
Right.
So should we just be avoiding all ice cream and, frozen yogurts?
For some people, maybe that is the best way to go, but not entirely. We don't need to completely exclude this option because there are. You can look for ice creams. People can look for ice cream brands that don't include synthetic emulsifiers like polysorbate 80. The other one he mentions, carboxymethylcellulose, carrageenan, xanthan gum. There are these things out there, and also, you can find ice cream that has more fat, and that can also have this. It can also be a substitute for having these emulsifiers in the content.
Good point. And also, a favorite this summer for me is just frozen fruit.
Right.
And there's many ways you can go in this this direction towards good health. Thank you so much for your insights here and for bringing Dr. Davis into our living rooms.
Thank you, Steph. Always a pleasure.
And to see that full Vital Signs interview with Dr. Davis, just go to your web browser and enter ept.ms/wheatbelly. Coming up, are rental car companies secretly charging you thousands for damage you didn't cause? We break down what you need to know.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
They're just young people, hungry, homeless, and vulnerable. Covenant House is helping young adults facing homelessness. We're providing safe shelter to thousands, but the need is overwhelming. Please call or go online now With your gift of $19 a month, we'll send you this blanket as a reminder of the comfort your gift provides a young person tonight. You'll provide safe shelter, hot meals, and medical care. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
What if you could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day, just by brushing your teeth.
I never thought that whitening my teeth could be so easy. I just put the gel on the brush, the toothpaste on it, brush, and I can see my white teeth.
Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth. Without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
And now, Smile Actives is even better with new Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power, clinically shown to whiten teeth faster, up to 8 shades. 100% of users saw whiter teeth. On food stains, coffee and wine stains, even on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth? Call or go to smileactives.com and for a limited time get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one get one absolutely free for just $24.95. That's 2 for 1 and save 58%. We'll even include free shipping. Get your teeth whiter guaranteed or return it within 60 days for your money back.
I smile every day now.
The difference is literally night and day.
So now I'm always smiling, always choosing, because now my teeth are much whiter.
This offer is not available in stores, so call or click now before the special buy one get one free offer goes away.
Welcome back. Rental car customers are getting hit with surprise damage bills, sometimes for thousands of dollars, weeks after returning vehicles. NTD's Kevin Hogan spoke to automotive journalist Paul Fix for insight.
Paul, great to have you with us. How widespread is this issue of post-return damage claims in the car rental industry?
Well, we don't have exact numbers, unfortunately, but there's an increasing number of people expressing their frustration on social media about returning their car and then weeks later getting a huge bill, in one case up to $3,000 for damage that may or may not have occurred. So this, of course, is fairly normal if you get bumped in the parking lot or if there actually is some sort of weather damage that might happen to your car, or if you curbed your wheel. This would be covered under your insurance in some cases. Of course, you'll have to look at your coverage, but it's getting more and more widespread. And now people are saying, well, there was no damage to my car at all, and I'm getting these huge bills. What is going on? So it is definitely a bigger story than what it first seems.
So bizarre. Can you walk us through how a customer might suddenly receive a $3,000 damage bill weeks after returning a car?
Yeah. So in one particular case I was reading online, there was a car that was driven in around for a couple of days, and it was returned. And the rental car company said there was hail damage. And the customer didn't remember there being any hail damage. And apparently what had happened was the rental car company had gone on weather and determined where there was hail, said that the car was in the general area, and said, okay, well, there was hail damage, and now you're getting charged. And they were not able to produce any actual evidence of pictures of the car, when it was damaged, where it was damaged, who was driving the car at the time of the damage. So
That's
these things getting combined together. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're concerned about here. Why do rental companies rely so heavily on these post-return claims rather than inspecting and documenting damage at the time of return?
Yeah, I think it's a money grab, to be completely frank. I think that they are really frustrated with not being able to make the profits that they feel like they need to be making. And so they're some people, not the entire companies, but some rogue people are finding excuses to charge customers things that they shouldn't be being charged at all. So there's a couple of things that you can do to protect yourself. There are parts of your car that most people never take pictures of, being the roof and the hood. But also just be aware of your surroundings in general. If you don't think that maybe you were hit while you were at a grocery store, take pictures of the car anyway. Take pictures of the car when you get the car. Take pictures of the car when you drop off the car. Know what has changed. It's very important to, pardon me.
Yes, well, absolutely. I mean, that's just common sense, checkbox issues, just to keep yourself from landing in this situation. Now, if you have more to say, please, by all means. And now, also, if someone receives a questionable damage claim, what's the best way to dispute it, and what rights do they have?
Yeah, you should absolutely dispute it. You should ask for documentation. You shouldn't have to need to get a lawyer involved. Absolutely. You should be able to handle this yourself. And by asking for the right documentation, by having the pictures available, you should be able to resolve this on your own. And of course, make sure that you have the right insurance coverage for your vehicle, either through your personal insurance or through the rental car insurance.
Okay, are there rental companies that are doing this responsibly? Could you give us examples of the best practices in the industry?
Well, really what should be happening is an upfront conversation. You return the vehicle, and you should have a direct conversation with the person that you have returned the vehicle to. They should review the potential damage or not damage in hopefully every case. And that should allow you to have that conversation before you leave, know exactly what the charges are going to be, and be able to take care of that before you get on your plane and go home.
Yeah, that would seem to solve the problem, definitely. Just get it all done right up front.
That's what should be happening.
Yeah, and beyond documentation, what reforms would you like to see in the rental car industry to prevent these kinds of scams?
Yeah, there might be laws that might be necessary to be put in place, or at least company policies that should be followed, which you should be able to read on the company's websites and then be able to reference for any potential legal issues. Having those documents, being able to back you up as the consumer, having those consumer protections should help you be able to avoid these issues in the future and just make it a cleaner process overall.
All right, great. So what's the best car in the market right now, Paul?
That's a very difficult question, but I can tell you that the #1 selling car is the Ford F-Series truck, at least for this year and for the last 42 years, not including 2024, which was the Toyota RAV4. And that many customers can't be wrong. It's millions and millions of vehicles. So they are very good vehicles. We have Car Coach Reports test-driven almost every single vehicle on the market. And I can agree with the customer base that the RAV4 and the F-150 are fantastic vehicles.
Excellent. Well, great hearing this rundown from you, Paul Fix. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
The Justice Department Friday released the transcripts of a July interview between Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and Ghislaine Maxwell. The accomplice to disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein said she never saw President Donald Trump behave inappropriately, and she said she was not aware of any client list belonging to Epstein. Here's more.
Did you ever observe President Trump receive a massage?
Never.
Under pressure to release files relating to its investigation of Jeffrey Epstein, the U.S. Department of Justice instead on Friday made public an interview carried out with his imprisoned associate, Ghislaine Maxwell. According to a transcript, Maxwell, serving a 20-year sentence for helping Epstein sexually abuse underage girls, said she never saw U.S. President Donald Trump behave inappropriately.
I don't think they were close friends, or I certainly never witnessed the president in any of, I don't recall ever seeing him in his house, for instance. I actually never saw the president in any type of massage setting. I never witnessed the president in any inappropriate setting in any way. The president was never inappropriate with anybody. In the times that I was with him, he was a gentleman in all respects.
Maxwell also said she was not aware of any rumored client list belonging to the late financier. He died in a Manhattan jail cell in 2019 while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. New York's chief medical examiner determined that Epstein's death was a suicide by hanging. In the interview, Maxwell said she did not witness any abuse by Epstein, her longtime boyfriend. She also did not implicate any other prominent individuals in wrongdoing. During Maxwell's month-long trial in Manhattan, jurors heard emotional and explicit testimony from 4 women who said Maxwell recruited and groomed them for abuse by Epstein. 3 of the 4 said Maxwell herself touched their bare breasts or took part in the encounters, which often began as massages. Maxwell, a former British socialite, was interviewed last month by Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. She was speaking on the condition that she not be prosecuted for any self-incriminating statements, but that she could be prosecuted if she lied. It is rare for a Justice Department official as senior as Blanche, who has also served as Trump's personal lawyer, to directly interview a criminal defendant. The interview also came as Trump sought to fight off criticism from his conservative base of supporters and congressional Democrats over the DOJ's decision not to release the Epstein files, having earlier pledged to do so. Epstein's death, coupled with his friendships with powerful people like Trump and former Democratic President Bill Clinton, has fueled conspiracy theories that other people were involved in his crimes, and that he was murdered to cover that up. No one other than he and Maxwell have been charged with crimes. Maxwell, who pleaded not guilty to the criminal charges brought against her in 2020, has asked the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn her conviction.
Good morning.
Her attorney David Marcus said in a statement on Friday that the DOJ interview supports Maxwell's argument that she is innocent. Marcus has previously said Maxwell has not held discussions with Trump about a possible pardon, but that she would welcome relief. A week after the interview, Maxwell was moved from a low-security prison facility in Florida to a less restrictive prison camp in Texas.
Next, we bring you professional tips on how to get a better night's rest with practical habits you can use in your daily routine. More after this break.
If joint pain from aging is slowing you down, Omega XL can help you get back in the saddle, just like it did for John Walsh.
Today I'm here at my ranch exercising some of my polo ponies. Got to be really fit to ride these horses. So as you get older, it gets tougher. I was starting to suffer some of that business, and then I ran into somebody who said, look, you should try Omega XL, and look what it's done. I feel better than I felt in the last 30 years.
I'm Reve Walsh. I'm John Walsh's wife. I ride fox hunters, and sometimes I'm in the saddle for 3-5 hours at a time. A lot of work out here.
I wouldn't have been able to do this. Muck a stall, throw hay, do all the things that needs to be done on a ranch a couple years ago. But Omega XL gave me the ability to get back in the saddle. It works great.
Once you try it, you don't want to be without it. Makes a huge difference.
It does. Take it every single day, and you know, there's a benefit. It's made you a lot nicer to me.
If you've been living with pain, it's time to get this special offer, the Omega XL, the joint health supplement that millions have trusted for more than 20 years. Omega XL, it's sourced from the green-lipped mussel, exclusively found in the pristine waters of New Zealand, some of the cleanest waters on Earth. Omega XL, it's natural, drug-free, and it's backed by more than 40 years of clinical research that show it really works. Try Omega XL today. Pick up your phone and call the number at the bottom of your screen right now for a special offer. Buy one, get two free. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3, a value of more than $100. But call today and you pay only $39.95. That's a savings of more than 60%. Plus, it's backed by our 60-day money-back guarantee.
Try it. You got nothing to lose.
Call or go online right now to get this special offer. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3 for only $39.95. Call now.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. but you can escape. Take the 1-minute pre-diabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
NTD News, the fastest growing independent news source in America, bringing you breaking news from around the world. Expert analysis, investigative reporting, and original award-winning documentaries. We're known for our uncensored China coverage you won't find anywhere else. We cover the stories that affect you and shape our world without the political noise. We report from the heart with you in mind. Watch us right here on NTD News.
Welcome to NTD News Today. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. The hotly contested Texas redistricting plan passes the Republican majority state Senate. Texas Governor Greg Abbott is expected to sign the bill, which could mean big wins for the GOP in Congress and a challenge for Democrats. Court documents say the Salvadoran man at the center of a high-profile U.S. immigration case now faces deportation to a country in Africa. The latest on Abrego Garcia. President Donald Trump announces the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts will host the 2026 FIFA World Cup draw. Our guest from the Epoch Times newspaper has the details. Plus, we bring you professional tips on how to get a better night's rest with practical habits you can use in your daily routine.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
The Texas Senate has passed its redistricting map, which is expected to favor Republicans in future elections. It passed the Republican-dominated upper chamber in an 18-11 party line vote. The bill will redraw Texas's congressional maps and could increase the GOP's number of U.S. House seats by as many as 5. The map is in line with a request from the DOJ, alleging that some of the state's districts are illegal under the Voting Rights Act. In response to Texas redistricting, California Governor Gavin Newsom on Thursday signed off on a map to redistrict their own state in favor of Democrats. Californians will vote this November on the referendum. The Texas map now heads to the desk of Governor Greg Abbott, who's expected to sign what he called the Big Beautiful Map into law. The illegal immigrant from El Salvador at the center of a high-profile immigration case could be deported to Uganda. The news came after Kilmar Abrego Garcia was released from a Tennessee jail. Their court filing said the U.S.'s new aim in the case emerged after Abrego Garcia turned down an offer that would have seen him deported to Costa Rica in exchange for staying in jail and pleading guilty to human smuggling charges. His attorney said that after he was released from the Tennessee jail, ICE notified them that he would be deported to Uganda and should report to immigration authorities on Monday. That's unless he accepts a plea in exchange for deportation to Costa Rica. If he doesn't take the plea deal, it'll be off the table. Abrego Garcia's case became a flashpoint in President Trump's immigration agenda after he was deported to El Salvador in March, despite a judge's ruling that he faced a well-founded fear of violence there. Today is Independence Day in Ukraine, marking 34 years since the country's separation from the Soviet Union. Also today, Ukraine struck a Russian nuclear power plant in Kursk. Plus, Russia and Ukraine exchange prisoners. A Ukrainian drone on Sunday hit Russia's nuclear power plant in Kursk, causing a brief fire and reducing output at one reactor to 50%. No injuries were reported and radiation levels remained normal, according to Moscow. Russian air defenses intercepted a drone headed for Moscow, prompting temporary closures at several regional airports, with dozens of flights delayed.
We use our domestically produced long-range weapons. And to be honest, we haven't been discussing such issues with the United States of America lately.
Ukraine had to ask the U.S. for permission to conduct long-range strikes on Russian territory under the Biden administration. Meanwhile, Russia and Ukraine exchanged 146 prisoners from each side on Sunday, according to the Russian Defense Ministry.
This is what we have been doing for 1,278 days of this war, the war for independence.
For each of these days, I want to thank you, Ukrainian soldier, Ukrainian volunteer, doctor, rescuer, teacher, our youth, our parents, every Ukrainian man and woman. Thank you all for what we've already been through and for creating Ukraine together.
With Ukraine's Independence Day today, Zelensky and the First Lady joined religious leaders in Kyiv's St. Sophia Cathedral for a prayer for peace. In the Vatican, Pope Leo renewed his appeal for peace in Ukraine. U.S. Special Envoy Keith Kellogg joined Zelensky for a state celebration. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney was there for his first visit as Prime Minister.
Ukraine gets it, peace, because it gets security guarantees, so strong that no one else in the world could even think of attacking Ukraine.
On the issue of security guarantees, Ukraine and Russia remain divided, particularly over the presence of Western troops on Ukrainian soil. That's one of the reasons Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says his country is not yet ready for a meeting between Presidents Putin and Zelensky. After the Trump-Putin summit in Alaska, peace talks saw a breakthrough. President Trump announced that the leaders of Russia and Ukraine would engage in direct dialogue. However, Russia has once again raised concerns. U.S. Vice President Vance responded, saying that ups and downs in diplomatic efforts to resolve such a complex war are to be expected.
If you look historically, whenever you have a complicated war with a lot of death and destruction, it kind of goes in fits and starts. There are hills and valleys to the negotiation. We sometimes feel like we've made great progress with the Russians, and sometimes, as the president has said, he's been very frustrated with the Russians. And we're going to keep on doing what we have to do to bring this thing to a close. I don't think it's going to happen overnight.
President Trump has given Moscow another 2-week deadline to agree to peace talks with Zelensky, warning he will take further action if no progress is made. Governor Gavin Newsom has signed California's redistricting plan. NTD's Don Ma discussed this issue with Gerard Felitti, an attorney and political strategist, and Madeline Somerville, an attorney, political strategist, and speechwriter. Check it out.
I think there will be legal challenges, of course, but I think the difficulty here is that the way that Gavin Newsom is doing this, the legislature is putting it forth as a special initiative. And that is a way that has been traditionally used in California to get measures on the ballots and to get measures into law that the legislature itself was unwilling or unable to take up. So I think ultimately that this will sustain scrutiny from California's courts, but it really becomes a political challenge because there's no guarantee that this will even pass when it's on the ballot in November.
So, Madeline, we have to address this point that California established an independent redistricting commission by constitutional amendment in 2008. So, I mean, does temporarily bypassing it, strictly speaking, violate that constitution?
I think that's a good question. That's going to end up being one for the judges to decide. But I think overall, right, judges end up being political, as we've seen in some cases. I think that when you bring an issue to the people, that's usually a good thing. And deciding that it's not for the people to decide is usually a very politically unpopular thing to do. So judges get elected just like the rest of us in most cases. And so it would be a very unpopular thing, I think, for them to decide that the people shouldn't be the ones making the decisions.
Okay, Gerard, can you go a bit deeper into a previous point that Madeline mentioned, which is, does putting this measure before voters, resolve surrounding concerns on this move? Because at the end of the day, right, it's the voters, it's Californians who are making the decisions.
Well, ultimately, the issue here is that Governor Newsom is bypassing what the people of California already said that they want. The people of California are the ones who voted for this independent commission because they didn't want political gerrymandering of political districts, of the districts for voting. So what Gavin Newsom is doing is he's going back to the people saying, I know that we gave you the power to do this independent of the legislature, but we want to take that power away from you, and we want to do it for the next 3 elections because we want more Democrats in the House. And I don't think that sits well with people. I think that people see that as a challenge to their sovereignty and to their vote, and will not go forward with this in November.
So, Madeline, would you like to elaborate further why you think that's a good argument?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, his point was the people have already said what they wanted, which is for an independent commission to make this decision. I think that's fair. I think what they're doing now is testing the waters and saying, okay, it looks like other states are going to redistrict outside of the 10-year census mark. At this point, is that still something that you want to do? So I think that his argument is fair, and then you could respond in the way that I just did, which is, this other, since we've introduced this new fact, which is Texas is doing this, is this how you guys want to do things too?
And Madeline, let me ask you another thing. In your mind, is there any concern at all personally that if California succeeds in passing its commission through a voter referendum, does that open the door for more future instances of potentially overriding independent redistricting processes?
I think that answer is yes, but I hope that it would serve as a model for other independent redistricting commissions to exist, right? Because in Texas, the president has explicitly said, bring me 5 more seats, right? They haven't asked the people of Texas, do you feel adequately represented by your representatives? And if they said no, then it would make sense, like from an objective perspective, to do that. So I think your question is to the structure of it, right? Like how's the process going to go? And so I'm hoping that if there is a change to the process or the structure of how things go, that we can insert an independent commission in there wherever it is.
Okay, Gerard, generally speaking, how do we ensure a redistricting process that is purely technical, not politicized? Is this possible?
It's very hard to see how it's possible. I think that we've had these processes play out in courts for decades, and it's always political. And it's permitted. The Supreme Court has weighed in that these can be politically motivated. They just can't disenfranchise voters. You can't affect minority voters. So ultimately, I think those are the strongest challenges to these laws, is how they affect the ability of people to vote for the candidate that they want and be fully represented. That's a challenge. Doing it impartially sounds great, but in practice, it will always be political.
Okay, I want to move onto a new topic, but Madeline, if you have any final thoughts on this topic.
Sure. Just quickly on the Texas issue, I think that it's been very frustrating, just as somebody in the media talking to folks who are 100% okay with what's going on in Texas, but they're not okay with what's going on in California. I encourage Democrats all the time to admit when they're contradicting themselves, when they're doing something wrong, so that they can gain back credibility. I think that Republicans are doing themselves a disservice by saying it's okay for me, but not okay for you.
Coming up, the Democratic Party is facing a voter registration crisis, according to a new report. What does this mean going into the midterms? Experts weigh in.
The bladder control aisle. You won't shop here again. Your private business is your own. The constant struggle is over. Now there's a better way. It's HDIS. We home deliver bladder control products. We understand how you feel. For over 25 years, we've home delivered to many of the 20 million Americans who deal with incontinence. We offer all brands. We pay shipping and use plain, unmarked boxes. If we can help you or someone you care for, call for your free product sample pack and $45 in money-saving coupons. Our counselors will help you choose the right product. And unlike stores, we're always in stock. You'll get what you need. Satisfaction guaranteed. HDIS, the better way.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog, $45 in money-saving coupons, and free product samples, call 1-800-701-6159. That's 1-800-701-6159.
Food. It fuels our bodies, nourishes our spirits, and brings us together. Because we all need nutritious food to thrive.
Food gives me energy and it also helps me focus.
But not everyone knows where their next meal is coming from. And 1 in 7 people in America face hunger. It's tougher than ever for too many of us. But the simple truth is, ending hunger is possible, and it starts with you. Call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, to help families in your community facing hunger. Feeding America works from coast to coast with partner food banks, food pantries, and meal programs. Your monthly gift delivers food where it's needed most, puts fresh food on the table, and helps kids have healthy meals all year round, even when school is out.
You can see the difference with the kids when they're full. Food is everything.
Please call the number on your screen or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org. Give $19 a month. Your first gift can double an impact. And we'll send you this free canvas grocery bag as a reminder of how you're helping to end hunger for good.
When it comes down to it, it's about taking care of your family first and the loved ones that you need to provide for.
Food donations help me tremendously, and I'm very grateful for the food bank. I have hope.
The simple truth is, ending hunger in America is possible. You can help make it happen. The need is urgent. Call or go online now to helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double in impact.
Welcome back. A new report says the Democratic Party is having a voter registration problem. NTD's Don Mott discussed this with Hadley Manning, fellow and executive vice president at the Steamboat Institute, and George Carrillo, former Democratic candidate for governor of Oregon.
Good to have you both on again. Hadley, I'll start with you today. What do you make of this New York Times report titled "The Democratic Party Faces a Voter Registration Crisis"?
Well, a few points. First of all, and I said this yesterday, but we're living in a time of very low public trust in all types of institutions. And this affects our major political parties, our media, our government, our academic institutions, even our social institutions like churches. People simply want to be unaffiliated. They want to be independent. They like to follow individuals, influencers online, but to identify with a party is simply less popular than it used to be. However, I think there's something particular affecting the Democratic Party today, and that is that it's become a small tent party. The right has become a big tent party where you have MAGA, but you also have the evangelical right, you have capitalists on the right, you have libertarians on the right, you have hawks on the right, you have doves on the right. Now, this makes for very interesting internal battles on the right, but it's a party that's even accepted a lot more populist ideas. Meanwhile, on the left, people sense that there's some kind of ideological purity test to be a part of the Democratic Party. They're more likely to say, that's not for me, I don't have a seat at that table. So there's a few factors going on, but I think Democrats can reverse this. It's not the end of the line for Democrats, but certainly a short-term problem as we come up on midterm elections in 2026.
So, George, how are you looking at this? What is your view with what's happening with Democratic voter registration numbers across the country?
So we're seeing that we lost trust with the American people years ago. I would say back to 2020, 2021. We really embraced diversity, equity, inclusion, but yet we didn't practice those things in real life. When you didn't agree with the Democratic Party's stance on things, then you were excommunicated from the party. There was this cancel culture movement that happened, and it didn't benefit the Democratic Party. And then, you have MAGA that comes in, creates, I think, a large divide within the country. But I think that most people saw that they didn't necessarily fit in with the Democratic Party. And so you're seeing this uptick, what I believe right now, in independent voters, not affiliating themselves with Republicans nor with Democrats. And so I think that holds a lot of power right now in our political system, because people are saying, we don't necessarily agree with the right or with the left. You're going to have to work for our vote. And right now, that's what the Democratic Party really needs to get back to, is what are we talking about at our kitchen tables? What's the American people talking about that's really impacting their everyday lives?
So, Madly, what do you think about what's being said just now?
Sure. It makes me think of what it was like to be on the right politically during the Obama years. In 2008 and 2012, after those elections when President Obama won and won big, specifically with certain demographics like young voters, voters of color, and single women voters, the autopsy on the common theme was, demographics are destiny and we are doomed, that we're going to see a lot of older Americans who identify with more conservative, right-leaning politics on the Republican side, kind of dying off or exiting the scene, and meanwhile the future belongs to Democrats. But that common wisdom at the time has turned out to be wrong. Things can change, and of course right now what we're witnessing is a big political realignment. And so MAGA is not your traditional conservatism. It is more broad and I would say more moderate in some ways and also harder to predict. But that makes it a challenge to be the political opposition, where I see on the left a bifurcation between the more progressive left wing of the party and center-left Americans who maybe traditionally have identified as Democrats, but they aren't sure if the future of the party is one where they have a seat at the table.
George, I want to continue on a point that Hadley mentioned briefly, and that is demographics. According to the report, Democrats are losing ground among men, young voters, Latinos. I'm curious as to what you think about that.
So I think you're absolutely right. When it comes to younger males, especially Black and Latino, I believe the Democratic Party just took it for granted that we were just going to always vote with the left, and that has shifted. As you know, our culture is very complicated. There's a variety of different layers within our culture, and I believe that the Republican Party was able to pull more on those heartstrings and really understand the voter, and that's the reason why you saw a major shift in this last election, where more Latinos, more Hispanics in America today voted for Donald Trump than for Kamala Harris. And so they're really struggling with that. They're trying to find their voice. Right now, what's a little bit frustrating is that for a minority group, as large as we are, we're the biggest minority group in the United States. We account for over 30 million people. We have a crisis here in the country when we come to stabilizing our workforce and also with mass deportations, but yet we don't hear Democrats coming up with a solution. We've actually proposed a solution that we believe is bipartisan that would really help the U.S. economy and also bring peace to our community. And yet we have been waiting for Democrats to jump on board to really sort of take the mantle. But if the response is always going to be, well, we're just not in power right now, well, then you're going to probably lose the next, midterm election. We really need Democrats to stand strong and posture strong and come up with solutions. And this blaming back and forth doesn't help. And they need to realize that for minority groups, if you are going to want to represent us, then you have to work for our vote. You could just no longer take for granted that we're just going to vote on the left side.
China has been in the spotlight this week, from high-stakes talks with India to economic trouble at home to growing pushback across the Indo-Pacific. Here's a quick recap. First up, India and China. Beijing's Foreign Minister Wang Yi was in New Delhi for trade talks on increasing Chinese rare earth exports and addressing border tensions. Both sides are still trying to de-escalate along their shared border in the Himalayas, where a deadly clash broke out back in 2020 between the two countries. Wang's visit comes just ahead of Prime Minister Modi's trip to China for the Shanghai Cooperation Summit. And staying with India and China, India is flexing its muscles. The country announced a successful test of its Agni 5 missile. It's capable of carrying nuclear warheads that can strike the entirety of China. This announcement was made just as Wang Yi wrapped up his visit, demonstrating India's balancing act between diplomacy and deterrence with China. Meanwhile, China's economy is sending warning signs. New numbers reveal youth unemployment hitting record highs. Almost 1 in 5 young people struggle to find work. That's the highest since the state began publishing data in 2018. The real number, however, could be much higher given Beijing's track record of manipulating information in favor of the Chinese regime. And while China deals with a struggling economy, other countries are preparing for potential conflicts with Beijing in the near future. For the first time, Taiwan's participation in U.S. military exercises was had highlighted publicity. More than 500 Taiwanese troops joined thousands of U.S. and allied forces in Michigan for war games focused on the Indo-Pacific region. The move highlights Taiwan's defense push and Washington's growing military cooperation with the island. Beijing responded to the exercises, warning the cooperation could spark conflict in the Taiwan Strait. But that's not all. Taiwan is planning to raise its military spending by 20% next year, pushing it past 3% of GDP. Other Asian countries are also ramping up military spending, preparing for the possibility of confronting China. Japan's defense is Spending is already up 21% after its fighter jets scrambled Chinese aircraft nearly 500 times in 1 year. The Philippines is also getting $500 million in U.S. aid to modernize, while South Korea and New Zealand are signaling bigger buys. Together, these nations form a defense barrier known as the First Island Chain. One of its main goals is to keep China's Navy within its own region. And 2 Chinese nationals convicted of drug charges of fentanyl and methamphetamine precursors, as well as money laundering, faced sentencing this week in New York City. For more on this, NTD's Carrie Duntz spoke with Steve Yates, a senior fellow for national security policy at the Heritage Foundation.
What do you make of this case?
Well, it's a very, very important case. It's personal for me in that I lost my daughter to fentanyl poisoning in 2023. And I think it's just so important if people look in just the summary details of this, how brazen the purveyors of this angel of death were in this effort. I mean, there are transcripts of them knowingly stating what they're producing, that it will cause death in America, and the people on the receiving end basically saying, I know. I think it's just special thanks to everyone that was involved in catching them and bringing them to justice. But as final point, it just really pains my heart to see that we were able to do this here. The Chinese government in Beijing could just as easily have found and stopped this on their end, but has chosen not to.
Steve, first off, our deepest condolences to you and your family. Now, I want to explore what the message that the sentencing of these 2 Chinese nationals potentially sends to those involved in the drug trade.
Well, I think this is a down payment. Personally, I advocate for labeling illicit fentanyl precursors as weapons of mass destruction. I think it's chemical warfare on the United States. There are hundreds of thousands of fatalities, probably millions of people affected adjacent to those who have passed. And if there is any other kind of military or other kind of move, it would be seen as an act of war. And this is, I think, a weapon of mass destruction. It would add to the president designating those who convey this by way of the cartels as being terrorist networks, that this is an act of terror on our society, and all of the money laundering and military tools are at the president's disposal with legal authorities to act. Now, that just gives him the authorities and the tools, up to him to decide when and how. But I think it would be important for branding that the PRC know that they're being identified as being involved in a weapons of mass destruction supply chain.
Yes, when you think of it's the leading cause of death, I believe now, among young males. And when I just walk to work outside of Penn Station, I can see the people that are affected and on these types of drugs, and they really look almost non-human in that moment. It's really ripping at the core of our country. Now, you want to point the finger at the CCP. So as you have just done, I want to understand, do criminals like these, are some of them rogue, or are they fully supported by the CCP in your view?
In my view, it's a strategic choice to allow this to happen. If you have the world's most advanced authoritarian state that monitors everyone's communications and political behaviors, it's impossible for me to get my head around the idea that these people would be acting without the knowledge of that surveillance state. And so I think it's a choice. If you're not going to have transparent and competitive democracy where people might make mistakes and you have contending factions, well, then you own the responsibility for everything that's happening in your country. And so it's their choice to have that system. I don't give them a break on whether these people are instructed by them or not. But I think that the Select Committee in the House of Representatives finding that there were government subsidies to reimburse taxes for entities involved in this is just a further indictment that they know. And so I think that it's important for people to see this indictment. It's in New York. This could and should be happening in almost every American city.
Yeah, and you mentioned how you feel that the drug, as well as its precursors, should be labeled so that stiffer action can be taken. What resources do you feel domestically and internationally should be deployed to address this problem?
Well, when a controlled item is put onto a weapons of mass destruction list, there are protocols, and there is legal fentanyl that comes in. One of the kind of painful ironies of my family's experiences was after my daughter went to critical care because of an overdose from fentanyl, one of the pain medications to protect her against swelling of the brain was fentanyl. And so there is a legitimate medical use of this, but there are a lot of powerful substances that go into the medical and research area where the illicit channels are vigorously prosecuted. And so I think that there are lots of areas where this could improve. Now, the lethality of fentanyl is likely to increase. Variations of this are likely to spread. And finding small quantities is a huge challenge. But we have technology, we have AI that can help, but ultimately we have to put real pressure on China to stop the flow from their end, or we can't win this losing battle with the fire hose coming into our country.
And Steve, just as we finish up in our last 30 seconds, Trump campaigned on this. He's been in office now for 8 months. How would you assess the effectiveness of his administration against fentanyl?
Well, first and foremost, I give immense credit for any leader of the United States being honest about what has happened and that it must stop. The previous administration for several years opened up immigration, opened up the flow of things that led to hundreds of thousands of fatalities. I think just being honest and making that slow is a major down payment. The administration is about to announce plans about how they're going to operationalize the attack against the cartels to try to stop that as part of this supply chain. It remains to be seen where negotiations in China will go. I know that it matters to the president. I hope that they find the leverage to really make a change in behavior in Beijing. My fear is that when presidents get into deal-making mode on broader issues, this might be seen as a marginal issue, but to 500,000 American families, this is far from marginal.
Steve, we know this is a painful topic for you to discuss and very much appreciate you sharing your expertise. Steve Yates, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Up ahead, the 2026 FIFA World Cup drop set to take place at the John F. Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. What President Trump's announcement means for the tournament and for fans, coming up.
Big things are happening at Mathis Home. Get Labor Day deals and save on everything for your home. They have hundreds of sofas and sectionals with styles you love at unbeatable prices, and they're the only place with top name recliners starting at just $199. Check out the latest looks in bedrooms and dining rooms and save big. Plus, you don't have to wait. They're all in stock with fast and easy financing and free delivery. Don't miss out. These Labor Day deals are happening now in every department at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
Focus on beauty, showcase nature, share kindness, feel brightness, capture the beautiful moments in your eyes. Your works will be showcased in galleries and on multiple online platforms, appreciated and collected. Please visit photo.ntdtv.com.
I didn't ask to lose my mother, or to be abused at 5 years old. I didn't ask to be kicked out of my house with nowhere to go. I just can't. I'm so sorry. I didn't ask for any of this. But I did ask for help, and Covenant House was there. Thanks to their love and support, and to generous people like you, I got what I needed to take control of my life.
For the young people who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations, Covenant House is there providing safety, hope, and a brighter future. Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night. 1 in 10 young adults will experience homelessness this year. Your gift can help reach them when they need it most.
I didn't ask for my parents and my family to disown me.
I didn't ask to end up in a homeless shelter. The beauty of it all is that I found Covenant House.
The need is overwhelming, but your monthly support will make sure no young person is ever turned away. Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
Covenant House really helped me and really helped mold me into the woman I am today. If there's no Covenant House, where would I be today?
Your monthly gift is urgently needed to reach young people in communities like yours who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations. Show them they're loved and not alone. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
And joining us now to discuss the 2026 FIFA World Cup draw set to take place at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. is Epoch Times reporter Jacob Berg. Jacob, good to have you with us today. The announcement came just Friday. Walk us through what it will look like.
Yeah, sure. And thanks for having me on again. So as Trump said on Friday, Washington, D.C. is going to get the honors of hosting the 2026 FIFA World Cup draw, or right down the road from the White House at the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. It's going to take place on December 5th of this year. And bringing the draw, as well as the other 11 FIFA World Cup events the U.S. is going to host, is projected to drive about $30 billion into the U.S. economy and create at least like 185,000 jobs was the estimate I saw. And for those that don't know, the World Cup draw is kind of like, it's a ceremony that determines which teams out of the 48 qualifying countries will play against each other in the group stage, and it also creates the tournament's bracket structure. And it's interesting hosting it at the Kennedy Center because it's a venue that usually hosts Broadway shows, orchestras, theater productions, and things like that.
Yeah, what is the significance in your mind of having the ceremony at such a place instead of, say, a typical sports venue?
Yeah, so when I was looking at it, interestingly enough, last year's World Cup draw was hosted at the headquarters of the television broadcaster Telemundo in Doral, Florida, which is a Miami suburb, and Trump even has a golf club there. But from what I've read, the other location FIFA was considering for this year's draw was Las Vegas, which hosted it back in 1994. And even at the time then, President Bill Clinton appeared via video link. But hosting it in Washington, D.C., for one, makes it easier for Trump to attend the ceremony, but it also has national significance, I imagine, it being at the nation's capital. And when Trump announced this at the press conference at the White House, he said his administration was going to work on beautifying the city in the months, between now and the ceremony.
Now, with the latest scrutiny over U.S. visas and eligibility, what do we know about visas for people coming to the U.S. for the World Cup?
Yeah, so Trump said specifically that the visa process should be fairly easy for most of the tourists that want to travel to the United States, either for the draw or any of the 11 other events that the U.S. is going to host. However, though, there was a caveat, and he said for most countries, it would be fairly easy. But then for other countries, it may be harder. And, that may be a reference to various countries that the State Department flags as being, more receptive to visa approval versus ones that aren't.
And what would you say is the broader significance of Trump's increasing ties with FIFA and global sports events during his second term?
Yeah, so, Trump's been a massive sports fan his entire life, it seems. We know he's a huge fan of golf, especially, he likes to go out and golf himself and often hosts a lot of leaders at his golf clubs. He's always been a huge fixture in professional wrestling and UFC. He's also a big fan of football and many other professional sports in the U.S. And, he's had quite the long relationship now with the FIFA president. He's hosted him in the Oval Office, I think nearly like half a dozen times at this point. Including last week. And Trump even attended the FIFA World Cup final at the MetLife Stadium in New Jersey back in July. And so, this new announcement bringing that draw right down the road from the White House, right at the nation's capital, it seems like a pretty significant advancement in Trump's, not just Trump's ties to FIFA, but also his ties to sports, to international sports, since FIFA seems to be, like a bastion of the international sports community. And, it'll be interesting to see what the next development is in Trump's, ongoing outreaches to various sports bodies throughout the rest of his term.
Certainly, just one of many changes under this term in office. Thank you so much for your time today, Jacob Berg. Good to speak with you.
Yeah, thank you. Good to speak with you too.
And coming up, we bring you professional tips on how to get a better night's rest with practical habits you can use in your daily routine. We'll be right back.
Whispered across generations, a hidden secret unveils the essence of longevity and vitality, a timeless legend regarding energy and wonder. Rooted in ancient health wisdom, we proudly introduce Pure Tang Black Ginseng, a 100% natural organic energy drink made from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng. It takes 2,260 days and nights from seed to growth, undergoing a meticulous 9-step process of steaming and drying. Black ginseng reaches its full potency, enriched with ginsenoside RG3 and enhanced absorption efficiency. No sugar, no caffeine, no artificial ingredients. Experience the pure, natural power of Pure Tang Black Ginseng. Nourish your body, strengthen your immunity, and boost your energy. To order Pure Tang Black Ginseng, please visit puretang.com.
There's cultures that have been lost, but this culture hasn't been. The artist is showing us our sense of who we are, where we came from. You look at his hat. His hat is knitted probably by a man, because a man traditionally knitted the hats. That hat tells you the story of who this person is, what his place in the culture is, the animals around him. Everything's all contained in the messages in the hat. And the tool that he's carrying over his shoulder. This is a centuries-old tool that has been able to rework the mountains. Those traditions are invaluable, and if we don't honor those traditions, then we're rootless. The artist is showing us the value of maintaining our culture and respecting our culture.
Next, a topic that's essential for our health: sleep. Whether it's trying to get a better full night's rest or wanting to improve your sleep habits, NTD spoke with Dr. Sonal Bhatia for some practical tips. Why is sleep so important?
Well, thank you, first of all, for welcoming back, Steph, Carrie. I mean, sleep is so important because did you know that we spend 1/3 of our time in sleep mode? So by the time you're 60, that's 20 years that you've spent asleep.
That's a long time.
That's a lot. And why is it kind of hard to get good sleep? For some people, for a lot of people, let's say.
For most of us.
Yeah.
I think we live in the Western world, and I think the opportunity now is to talk about the why behind it's so important and how you actually can repair your body during those very critical hours that you sleep.
Well, I Really am looking forward to all of the excellent tips that you've got for us. I actually went out onto the streets of New York City to ask people all about how they're sleeping these days, and also if they have any tips about how they try to get good sleep. So check it out.
It's not great, I think, because it's summertime right now, but I typically try for like 8 hours, but it's more like 7.
At night, I'm up and I can't sleep, and so I'm just tossing and turning, and then in the morning I feel sluggish, I feel, worn out, like I did a whole day's work.
Typically like read a book or watch a TV show.
So I use an 8-sleep mattress.
When I know that my mind is racing, if I just turn my phone off 15 or 20 minutes before bed, that helps me sleep.
I like to sleep with a cuddle.
Well, as we just saw there, I mean, people are really struggling with getting good sleep. It's not that easy, and a lot's changed over the last 10, 20 years. Technology, the biggest thing. So what do you recommend to people on how to not let technology interfere with getting a good night's rest?
Yeah, over the last decade or maybe 2 decades, technology has become so critical, but we need to just avoid the screens when we're going to bed.
Oh, really? No, it's so hard to do it though.
It is, but you gotta put your phones away, put them in another room, put on Do Not Disturb, because what happens then is melatonin suppression. The blue light from our devices is telling our brain, it's like a little sunshine that goes in your brain and says, it is daytime. And so you're scrolling through your devices.
Tricking the brain.
And you're tricking the brain.
Oh my goodness.
Instead, put it away and maybe consider journaling.
Journaling.
Write down the things you're in gratitude for during the day, or put down the things you're going to worry about the next day so that it's out of your mind.
I remember in the old school, I used to have a book, a paper book by the bed, but no longer. That's a great tip to go back to paper. Now let's talk about diet. How should that affect getting a good night's sleep and getting into a good rhythm?
Diet is so important. I mean, we should be stopping the digestion process before bedtime. So finish digestion a few hours before. This triggers the mind.
No more bedtime snack?
No more bedtime snack. Maybe
My favorite.
something light is okay, but you need to tell the body, I'm done. I am done with eating, so that you can start cellular repair, because that happens between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. If you miss it, it doesn't happen at 4 in the morning. So you've really got to allow the growth hormones to activate themselves between 10 p.m. And for that, you need digestion to be done. And hey, we've talked about golden milk.
Golden milk. I was going to say, like, I can't go to bed without a little something, something. So you're saying there are better things to do besides eating a big burger?
Yeah, I think that would probably be something you should do at lunch, if at all. We will talk about that another day.
Yeah, that's right.
But golden milk has all the spices to trigger your body to get into a really nice cellular repair.
Fantastic. Now, I think people are so amped up with all the stimulation. So how can people kind of come down before they're ready to get to bed? What's the ritual? What should they do? Candles, little Mozart? What should we be doing?
Ooh, Mozart sounds great. I think rituals are really important to get your body in sync and give it that rhythm. So, for example, a little bit of a massage. Take some lavender oil, sandalwood oil, just put it on your temples, the soles of your feet. It triggers the body to reduce the cortisol levels. The cortisol levels that stay high during the day, it triggers it to slow down. And take deep breaths. Breathing is so important to trigger your body into, hey, it's time to sleep, it's time to rest, it's safe now. So that half-hour ritual without a device is really important.
All right, you heard it here. Get some good routines before bed. Put away the phones. Get some paper. Maybe some golden milk instead of the burger before bed. With that, we're going to throw it back over to you, Steph.
Yeah, some awesome tips there. And you know what? I actually got some more questions to dig into some of these tips a little further. I was out in New York City recently and asked people for their questions to put to Dr. Bhatia. This first one comes from Josh. I want to dig into this aspect of eating and when to eat. It's all about timing. Let's see that.
I've heard mixed reports on the eating before bed situation. And I know that it's not great to eat super close to bed, but then also it's not okay to go to bed hungry either. So I would love to know what the right middle ground is.
So you heard it there. That was actually a fairly common question among the people that we asked. And
we all want to nibble before bed,
that's
right?
Because you can't go to bed hungry, as he said. So what's your tip there? I mean, we've got the golden milk. That, by the way, tastes delicious.
It was fantastic.
But in terms of like when should you fully have that hard stop? Is there a time?
Yeah, I would say depending on your level of activity. If you're working out in the evening, you're probably going to need a little more substance and nutrition. But maybe 2 to 3 hours is a really good rule to be done with your main dinner. And then towards the nighttime, you have your golden milk and maybe a few nuts, maybe an herbal tea if you don't want the milk. All of these are really good soothing mechanisms, and the nuts have protein, so it will keep you a handful, not too much. What's really important though is you're already telling your body, I know you're hungry, but it's sleep time, so that your body then says, okay, we're no longer gonna be hungry at this time. So after a few days, you've already educated your mind and your body that you don't need that food.
Oh, that sounds so good. And this next question from Michael was another somewhat universal, I'll say, question all about caffeine. And he wanted to know, yeah, so let's hear from Michael.
When should I have my last cup of coffee? Because sometimes I feel like if I have it too late, I don't sleep great.
I personally don't drink coffee really late at night, but sometimes I really want to, even in the afternoon, you know, and you just feel that there's nothing else that can replace that. So I don't know what you have for us there.
You know, according to Ayurveda, you really shouldn't be putting caffeine into your body. But I'm not going to tell the audience don't have coffee, right?
There'd be a mutiny.
I'm not going to say that. Yeah. However, it's really important to know that caffeine has about a 6-hour half-life for metabolism. What that means is it's actually staying in our system for much longer than we thought. We think, oh, 1 or 2 hours and I got my caffeine induction. No, it's about 6 hours, and it's different for different body types. That's average. So ideally, if it's 2 p.m. or earlier, that's probably when you should have your last cup of coffee, because what happens is towards the night, if there's caffeine, the melatonin cannot take over. And the melatonin is saying, hey, let's wind down, let's go to bed, let's go to sleep. But if there's caffeine in the system, it's not coming up. So you're not going to be sleepy enough to get into bed. So I would say 2 p.m. and sometimes some people are very sensitive. I am. I can't do it before that.
Noted. I will be applying this. Okay, our next question comes from Jillian, and she had such a fascinating question, one I'd never really thought about before, to be honest, but now I really want to know. It's about some specific differences between men and women in sleep. Let's check out what Jillian had to say.
I'm curious if the ideal amount of sleep varies between men and women. Like if women need more or less sleep, or if 8 hours is just the standard for everyone.
So now, I mean, there's a lot of differences between men and women, of course, but it would seem almost some kind of tragedy if there were actual different needs for hours of sleep. Because how do you see it?
No, I think that's such an important question, because on average, 7 to 9 hours is what an adult should sleep. There are differences, not in the amount that the women need, but in the depth of the sleep that they have. And that is where it gets triggered, because they're not sleeping as deep. Why? Because they go through hormonal changes on a monthly basis and a cyclical basis. They're also caregivers, and so they're actually sleeping lighter because of the sounds of their kids, perhaps. So women traditionally sleep lighter because of that.
Fascinating. Okay, next up is from Juliana, our last question. And while most people said that they wanted to know how to get to sleep, well, Juliana wants to know how to stay asleep and not wake up in the middle of the night. Let's hear from her.
What do you do to stay asleep? You can keep sleeping longer. What do you do?
Yeah, she was a fairly active person, she said, walking all the day. She was retired.
Yeah.
So she didn't have many of those common problems, but this one actually plagues a lot of people.
A lot of people tend to wake up in the middle of the night, and then it's hard to go back to sleep. And I think that is her question. And I would say the best routine, and I would love for you to do it, is the breathing routine.
Oh, let's
so
do
breathe
it.
in,
That'd be great.
breathe in for 4 seconds.
Okay.
Hold it for 7. And breathe out for 8. And this is the 4-7-8 routine. When you wake up in the night, do not turn to your phones because that signals that it's time to wake up. Instead, just close your eyes and do this breathing technique and you'll be back into deep sleep.
Oh my God.
I'm ready to go to bed right now.
I know, just with that one cycle, I could feel myself calming down. That's wonderful, because actually when you wake up in the middle of the night, you feel, okay, I don't have time to stay awake.
Yeah,
But
you're ready
it's
to
so
go.
quick.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, you had mentioned not eating late at night, and you had also mentioned that 10 to 2 is kind of like where you get your best
Cellular
sleep.
repair, yeah.
So what has to happen so that the body is really recovering, especially for people who might, work out or do things like that? What's happening at that time that you really need to let the body focus on that one job?
Yeah, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. is growth hormone activation. That's when your body goes into repair. You're productive during the day, at night it needs to repair. So you need to be in bed before 10 p.m. so that your growth hormone activates and then you get all that immune system recharge and reset.
Amazing.
Yeah, I certainly feel way more equipped to deal with, the task of living a great life.
Yeah.
And it all starts with good sleep. Thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Sonal Bhatia.
My pleasure.
Always great to see you. And unfortunately, we're out of time. We're going to have to wrap up our show here, but we're wishing you wonderful sleep this weekend. I'm
Sure
Carrie
are.
Dunst. Enjoy the weekend.
And always, Stephanie Cox. Good to see you.
See you soon.
And with the number of COVID-19 cases rising, the American Academy of Pediatrics released its updated recommendations on vaccines and shots this week. The problem? They differ from the CDC's. Here's what you need to know as your kids head back to school.
The American Academy of Pediatrics, or AAP, issuing new guidance on COVID-19 vaccines for children.
At the Academy, we always start with what is in the best interest of the health of children.
The AAP recommending that all children ages 6 months through 23 months should receive a COVID-19 vaccine unless they're allergic to it, and a single dose after the age of 2.
Pediatricians around the country stand ready to do whatever is needed to keep our children safe.
The CDC guidance says the COVID-19 vaccine for healthy children ages 6 months to 17 years should be, quote, based on shared clinical decision making.
If the pediatricians are saying one thing, but our health secretary is saying another, these are real challenges that we are facing right now. And I have a feeling they're going to negatively impact vaccination rates for this fall.
As kids head back to school, COVID rates in the southern western U.S. reached 12.5%. That's the highest in the nation right now, according to the CDC.
We can't undervalue how important vaccines have been. If we're not careful, we may be rolling back the clock in a harmful way.
So what can you do to avoid confusion?
It's okay to hesitate and ask questions. Let's get you all the information you need in order to make the right choice for you and your family.
That's all for today's news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific.